My name is Earle Barnhart. I am a board member of the Green Center in Falmouth on Cape Cod in Massachusetts.
I'm Hilda Maingay. I'm also a Green Center board member. The major tasks of the Green Center are the creation of ecologically derived human support systems, renewable energy, agriculture, aquaculture, nutrient recycling, housing and landscapes. The strategies we research emphasize a minimum reliance on fossil fuels and operate on a scale accessible to individuals, families and small groups. Ecologically and social transformations must take place at the lowest level of society if humankind is to direct its course towards a greener, saner world. This conference is about creating more affordable and environmental sustainable communities. Here are some ideas to consider to make PEI more sustainable and affordable, because PEI, you are in trouble. Your housing is getting more expensive. Your energy is going to get more expensive. Drinking water has nitrates and PFAS. And you have a lot more pollution in your water. You have urine trouble. Because right now, a lot of your urine is going to waste and pollutes all your waters. And if we keep the urine out, you might get a much better environment, much cleaner water. So, for heaven's sakes and for future's sake, please stop waste. Waste is never affordable. Waste is never sustainable. And waste contributes to climate change. Environmental problems that you have include water pollution. And from now, that's mostly because it's polluted by non-used nutrients that are wasted and put into the water. Nitrogen and phosphorus are one of the major contributors to your problems in the water. Where are all these nutrients coming from? Well, they come from, first of all, agricultural fertilizers that are in great amount shipped over your bridges and maybe also by boat to PEI. And there's a lot of import there. It's about 2/3 of all your cost is the import of fertilizers. And that is incredibly difficult for your economy to become sustainable. From the fertilizer that PEI imports to grow to the food we eat, all that stuff goes into the water. So just imagine all the fertilizer used for agriculture. Agriculture grows the food you eat, then people eat the food, and the food gets excreted as waste, and all the same nutrients except for maybe 2% that we use for our bodies, everything goes into the flush toilet and ends up into groundwater or in rivers eventually, and from there to ponds and eventually ocean. Now, in normal house, about 50% in PEI, they still have septic tanks. Septic tanks waste all the nutrients, and they were not made to recover anything. They were basically made to keep the pathogens away from human populations, and they do a great job on that. But other than that, they waste the water, so the drinking water, clean drinking water is wasted because it's flushed with human waste, and it wastes all the nutrients. So basically, it pollutes from the septic tank to the leach field into the groundwater and to all the rivers, bodies of water, and eventually estuaries and the ocean. So all these good nutrients are wasted and pollute everything on its way. And eventually it pollutes all the groundwater and eventually really all the oceans. All over the world this is happening. And nitrogen is one of the major pollutants of the ocean and from salt water. Phosphorus is mostly affecting fresh water, but both are needed to cause the growth of algae blooms, which cause then oxygen depletion and deterioration of all the aquatic ecosystems. Now, how many pounds of nitrogen from urine pollute PEI per year? Well, it's about 2.8 million pounds of nitrogen just from urine from the people that live on the PEI and their visitors. So what can we do about it? how can we reduce that amount of nitrogen water pollution?
There are several ways to reduce the nitrogen pollution in the environment. The simplest and cheapest one is to grow oysters in the estuaries, in the polluted water, on the shores, on the coastal waters. And in PEI, growing oysters is a traditional, important industry. And the more oysters that are grown in the water, in the coastal waters, the more nutrients are removed and the water quality is raised.
The good thing about oysters too, it sequesters a lot of carbon.
The normal solution to wastewater is from municipal governments is to build sewers. And all of the waste materials from houses are piped to the sewer to remove them from the groundwater. However, in the sewer, the nutrients, the wastes are not recovered. The only thing that a sewer is designed to do is to gas off some of the nitrogen in the water that comes into the sewer. Not all of the nitrogen is gassed off. Some of it goes with the water that goes through the sewer back into the ground or into the nearest river or directly into the ocean. Other amounts of the nitrogen are in the sludge, the solid material that goes in from the sewer. All of these are waste materials. So the system in America and in industrial countries are to make fertilizer, grow food, eat the food, put the nutrients from the food through the flush toilets into a sewer, and then it's wasted into the groundwater, into the sludge, or into the air. So it's a complete system of linear waste. From the beginning of the fertilizer to the pollution of the ocean.
Yeah, and all the wastewater that comes off the sewer plant, which includes the effluent, all the liquid that they have to discard off, as well as the sludge, doesn't only have these nutrients from the human waste, it has all the other contaminants, PFAS and microplastics and heavy metals and anything else that goes into a waste stream from factories or from homes or from other kinds of businesses, all in there. So when the sewer is done and it dumps all that stuff, it has all these contaminants as still in it. And people don't realize, they think that wastewater from a sewer is clean. It is not clean. It only has removed a lot of the nitrogen level that is as clean as drinking water. But the water itself is not clean. It will never be clean. And the sludge is not clean. It is full of contaminants.
So there are several disadvantages to sewers. One is that as they operate to remove nitrogen, they produce greenhouse gases, lots of greenhouse gases. They produce carbon dioxide, they produce methane, they produce nitrous oxide in large amounts. When the sludge is removed from a sewer, it is often put on the ground as fertilizer on farms, and it contains PFASs and it contains microplastics, which remain in the soil forever and make these agricultural soils dangerous to use for food production forever after. Also, sewers are extremely expensive. It's a very costly way to purify the wastewater, and it's one of the largest expenses from cities and municipal governments that there are.
Also, it's not just the construction of sewers that is expensive. It's the maintenance, and it's the only one that I can think of a big, large infrastructure that has to be permanently, forever, eternally maintained. Because even in a large building or a big street, that could be abundant and it will affect some people. But once you have a flush toilet that's connected to a sewer, you have to maintain it forever. And those costs are huge, and they rest on future generations. And it is just unforgivable that we put that on future generations where we have no idea if they even work to the extent that we need, because we know they actually don't work, because all the minerals and all the nutrients are all wasted, so that's unsustainable, and they use water clean drinking water as a transportation method, which is also unthinkably bad for the environment. And as we now know, clean drinking water becomes more and more of an issue all over the globe. There's less and less of it, and it is not thinkable that we keep flushing our waste with drinking water.
So we're interested in an alternative to sewers. Our interest is on urine diversion. The nitrogen that causes the pollution largely comes from nitrogen in urine. And if you divert and recycle the urine in a productive way, you have a large number of advantages. You have waterless urine fixtures in bathrooms, so you conserve water. The eco-toilets and the urine diversion fixtures conserve and recover the nutrients, and they recycle the nutrients back to agriculture as fertilizer. It can replace synthetic fertilizers, which are produced in a remote factory using fossil fuels and has to be purchased and transported for the agriculture. It reduces pollution of the water because it keeps the nitrogen out of the water, never goes into the groundwater. It avoids greenhouse gases, which the sewers produce. If you can avoid sewers, you avoid greenhouse gases. Urine diverting fixtures are very low tech. They're very simple. They do not require multinational corporations and designers and engineers to design and maintain them. They can be affordable to the average person. They would cost a fraction of what sewers would cost or the hookup to a sewer will cost. They're very reliable. They do not fail. They're very durable. They'll last generations. And they are safe and hygienic. They are more hygienic than a flush toilet. The basic concept of urine diversion is that one person produces in a year 120 gallons of urine, and 80% of the nitrogen from a person is in that urine. But the urine is only 1% of the wastewater that comes out of a house. So if you can recycle, recover that 1% of the volume and transport it to a remote place out of the watershed, out of the groundwater, you can keep that nitrogen out of the wastewater and keep it from polluting.
Yeah, the interesting part is that in a sewer plant, 80% of the cost of a sewer plant is to remove the nitrogen that originated in the urine. Just imagine that. That's only 1% of the volume, but they spend 80% of all their cost on removing that particular amount of nitrogen. And if we keep it out, then the sewer plants will be much more efficient. They produce much less greenhouse gases, and they would have much less effluent and less sludge. So it's good in every single respect, not just only for people that aren't on the sewer, but also even for people that are on the sewer.
On a household level, one person produces 135 gallons of waste materials in a year. And that's from all the food that they eat. Your year's supply of food that you eat, virtually all ends up in the nutrients in your human waste. And the problem is that people put this into flush toilets, and they add it to flush water, and it becomes wastewater, and it becomes impossible to separate those nutrients out again once you've mixed it with all of that water. So putting waste into flush toilets is the problem. And urine diversion offers solutions to that. There are several different strategies for urine diversion fixtures in a home. One is the idea of a composting toilet, where the urine is diverted to a special toilet fixture into a storage container, and then it is recovered, recycled, and taken away and made into fertilizer. The solid wastes in a composting toilet are composted in a composting container, and it is made safe to use as fertilizer in agriculture also. And it's waterless. There's no water involved, and it's very highly hygienic. The other solution for urine diversion is to have fixtures which the urine is diverted out into a storage tank, usually buried outside in the lawn, in the ground, and the urine is diverted and taken away, and the solid wastes from a composting flush toilet, it goes into your normal septic tank. So a person can have a composting flush toilet which looks and acts like a normal flush toilet in their home, but the urine is diverted. There are a large number of urine diverting fixtures available in the world. Very few of them are permitted in the United States. Very few of them are permitted in our state of Massachusetts. So you should find out on PEI which kinds of urine diverting fixtures are permitted either by right or by getting a special permission. The good news is that although the United States does not now make or permit urine diverting fixtures, there's a company, an American toilet company, that is going to make a urine diverting flush toilet for the American market within a year or so, in which, when that happens, people can switch out their currently polluting flush toilets for a urine diverting flush toilet and install it in their homes.
There are a couple toilets that are permitted that are doing an excellent job, but there are very few, and one of them is an incinerating toilet, and the other one, the couple composting toilet, where all the human waste is diverted away from the waste stream. So there are a couple approved all over the country, and including Massachusetts, which is very conservative, but all the other urine diverting toilets are all from Europe, mostly Sweden and Finland, and they are used all over the world, but they're not officially permitted in our state. But they might be in PEI. You might have to check with your local Board of Health.
So one of the advantages of urine diverting fixtures are that many of them are waterless. And if you don't flush in your house, you do not pollute large volumes of water. In a normal house, the urine that's flushed and used for a single person, 4,000 gallons to flush urine in a year. If you have a waterless urine diverting toilet, you save 4,000 gallons. You do not have to buy 4,000 gallons, and the town does not have to supply you with 4,000 gallons. But in a normal home, the nutrients are mixed with water, plus all of the gray water, which are washing machines and sinks and showers and bathtubs, all get mixed together with the waste from the house and put into the ground and are impossible to separate out again later.
That's a total of 12,000 gallons of water that are now polluted with human waste, and that the sewer plant or some other structure has to remove.
So the idea of urine diversion is relatively new, and it's been worked on most by people in Vermont. There's a nonprofit institute in Vermont called the Rich Earth Institute, and they have been working on the technology to make urine diversion possible and legal and affordable to people. So the way it works in a typical situation is that there are urine diverting fixtures in the home. The urine is collected and stored in a container, a tank, usually outside in the ground. It is pumped out and removed by a company who specializes in urine diversion, collection, and recycling. There's a company in Massachusetts and Vermont now that will come to your house and pump the urine out and take it away, make it safe to use, and turn it back to fertilizer for farmers. The way they do that is to pasteurize it. As they collect it, they heat it up with a small amount of heat for a short time, kills all the pathogens, all the viruses, and becomes safe to use for fertilizer. It's an excellent fertilizer for farmers. It contains all the nutrients plants need. It came from the food that you ate, and it is more complete than a synthetic fertilizer. It's always available. It's always local. It's never have a problem of getting it from some remote place in the world, and it's equitable. There's urine available as fertilizer in every community, everywhere in the world, to everyone.
For free.
The cost of diverting, of recovering nutrients, nitrogen, from the wastewater varies depending on what the system you use. If you use a sewer to take the nitrogen out of the groundwater, it costs $300 per pound of nitrogen for a sewer to remove it and gas it off into the air. The average person makes 8 pounds of nitrogen in a year. So if you have a sewer doing the nitrogen recovery, you're spending $2,400 per person per year to remove that nitrogen.
That's a minimum. Yeah.
And the urine diversion is considered to cost a fraction, probably 10% or 20% of the cost of doing the same thing with a sewer.
And that is year by year. It doesn't cost just once. It is $2,400 or more per year per person to remove the nitrogen that originated in the urine.
One of the things that make this possible now is there is a company that will take the urine and process it and make fertilizer out of it. If you store it somewhere after it's diverted from a urine diverting fixture, it can be in containers in the home, it can be containers that are stored outside the home, and any of these containers can be pumped out by the company and taken away. This is done on a big scale in other places. The largest one is in Europe, in France. There's a company that diverts urine, collects urine, makes it safe to use, and sells it to farmers. And they do it on an industrial scale, and they do it in multiple countries now, and they are growing larger and larger. In Rich Earth Institute in Vermont, the urine is collected by the Rich Earth Institute. It's stored in large tanks, and then it's pasteurized and given to farmers.
And there are right now more farmers that want urine than there's urine available. So they're trying to get more and more people to have urine diverting fixtures in their homes so that the farmers can get the urine that they want for their fertilizer.
So one of the good points here is that it is very inexpensive to make the urine safe to use. The Rich Earth Institute invented a pasteurizer, which is a very small electrical device. It heats urine for 90 seconds, for 176 degrees. It kills all the pathogens, kills all the viruses. And after that, it's safe to use. It's called a EPA Class A material. Safe to use for any purpose that you want.
So that means it's basically $1.20 per person per year to pasteurize their urine. It's extremely inexpensive to do this technology.
So there are two ways that a town might consider using the urine that's collected in their community. One is to transport it to farmers. The farmers would put it on hay fields and cornfields and any kind of crop. The other solution that we're interested in is to take the urine, pasteurize it, make it safe, and then compost with it. Mix it with other organic materials such as leaves and landscape debris and waste materials on the landscape, and make a recipe that combines the urine with these landscape wastes and possibly food wastes also, and make a solid, safe compost material from it, which is then given out and sold as fertilizer as a product.
Yeah, and would be storable and easier to transport than the liquid urine. So there's a big advantage to that, and I hope your towns will consider that.
So there are different scales that urine can be used as fertilizer. On a home scale, it is possible to use it immediately in food production in vegetable gardens. The Rich Earth Institute has done studies to show that this is medically safe. You can grow food with the waste material from a home urine diverting fixture. That can be given to farmers and used on a commercial scale for farmers.
Or for play field or golf courses. Once it's pasteurized, it can be used for many purposes. And when it's commercial, one has to pasteurize it. But when you use it at home, they found out that the exposure to pathogens in the house with the people you live with is much greater than the exposure of the same pathogens when you put it from urine onto your garden as a fertilizer.
The Rich Earth Institute has provided urine to farmers as fertilizer, and the farmers immediately came up with their own methods of distributing it and applying it. And they now store the urine in these commercial containers called IBC containers, and then the farmer will use those to make the urine go into the ground when they plant their crops. And they invented their own equipment to do it. The other piece of equipment which would be useful for composting with pasteurized urine is called an eco-drum. It's a composting drum which materials are put in at one end in a proper recipe, and this turns 3 or 4 times a day, and the material slowly gets mixed and moves to the other end over a period of several days to several weeks, and the compost that comes out is finished and is ready to be used as a fertilizer product.
The good part of the eco-drum is also that everything is contained. If you have composting on the ground in row covers, then a lot of the nitrogen escapes and a lot of the nutrients actually go into the ground. It's possible that you might lose some of it. In the eco-drum, there is no such a thing. It's all contained.
And the last innovation for recovering and making urine into fertilizer is to make struvite fertilizer out of it. It's a solid material. The company that collects it in Massachusetts and Vermont makes it safe to use and turns it into a powdered granular product where all the phosphorus is extracted from the urine and sold as a phosphorus fertilizer. And this is commercially approved for agriculture in Vermont and Massachusetts right now. If you do this, you can use solid fertilizer diverted and converted from urine instead of commercial industrial fertilizer. And in Massachusetts, where we are on the Cape Cod, we import 6 million pounds of commercial fertilizer a year, mostly for lawns. And if half the people on Cape Cod would divert their urine and turn it into solid fertilizer, we could reduce the nitrogen that we import and save nitrogen from going into the groundwater.
If PEI did that, just imagine how many pounds of imported synthetic fertilizers could be replaced by the fertilizer made from urine. That would be an economic boost and would environmentally so much better. If PEI diverted urine, you would also be able to replace not only the imported fertilizer, but also conserve water, reduce water pollution, improve the climate, save money, and make a better future for our children. Thank you very much.
If you'd like to know more about these ideas, you can contact us by sending an email to us at thegreencenterinc@gmail.com, and we have a website called newalchemists.net, and you will learn more about these ideas. Thank you very much.